Hey guys, what's going on? It's Eli, back with another review video, and continuing on with the Disney Animated Movie Week. And that's right guys, well, you read the title, you know what I'm reviewing next, and as was clearly teased in the last review video, I'm sure you obviously quickly figured it out, but yeah, because, well, you know, like I said in my last review, 1995 was a pretty good big year for Disney because a lot of pretty good films that came out that year, especially since, two hand-drawn animated films and the first ever computer animated film. Well, and even around that same time when Toy Story came out, the next Disney animated film in their lineup of the Disney Renaissance that would come out, and the fact that Disney at the time, when they were making this, they were really hoping that this was going to be another amazing animated film after, say, Beauty and the Beast, especially Katzenberg. He was definitely betting that this was going to be a money grabber and an Oscar-nominated success, maybe up to, say, Best Picture. But the ending results, well, it made its way to the Oscars, but not up to, say, Best Picture. Didn't really hit the same level and such as, say, Beauty and the Beast. Yeah. But that's not to say that, the film itself is entirely bad. No, because obviously there's a lot of those, a lot of you, including me, that really do enjoy and like this Disney animated film from the Disney Renaissance. Yep, this film has its fans, its lovers, and anybody who would consider this being one of their top favorite Disney animated films, especially from the Disney Renaissance. Yeah, so that's right, guys. I am now finally reviewing, not to mention, this one Disney film in the lineup of the Disney Renaissance is, in fact, celebrating its anniversary. Yes, I am now reviewing, from 1995, Pocahontas. Yes, Pocahontas. Yeah, because, I gotta say, with the first things I have to say about Pocahontas, of course, well, and having revisited/rewatched this, and, well, I mean, I've seen this many times, yeah, I gotta say that Pocahontas is still a pretty good, enjoyable, it is, without a doubt, another good Disney animated film, and after, say, The Lion King, and that's another thing, because, those at Disney weren't sure at the time if Lion King was going to be a huge successor. They were really having their eyes sight on this, and yeah, and the rest. But I'll talk about it some more when I get to the background. But back on point with the first things I have to say. Yeah, because with what Pocahontas has to offer, with what Disney brought to their version of Pocahontas, and being very, careful, of course, with the Indian culture, and even though, because, well, not everything that came from Pocahontas is 100% accurate. Yeah, that's another big thing. And very complicated, for Disney when they were trying to, do a lot of things and to incorporate that in their adaptation of Pocahontas, and the fact that Pocahontas was a real person, and so was John Smith, just, yeah. Complicated stuff like that, but, since this is a Disney film, I mean, even though, because, well, there are a few people, I guess, and, well, I know a few of them that didn't really enjoy this. Come on, because, Disney did their very best with this. I get it, but, still. I think that everything from beginning to end with what Pocahontas had to offer is really good. Good storytelling, great casting, good voice acting, of course. The animation, top-notch, especially since most of the human characters, they're quite different than, say, some of the other human characters we've seen in some of the other Disney animated films, especially, like, say, their eyes being very, like, short or something. I think you get what I'm saying. Like, in comparison to, say, like, Aladdin or Beauty and the Beast, if you get what I'm saying, just, yeah, how those human designs in those Disney animated films, or even say what came after Pocahontas, yeah, completely different than, say, what was brought to Pocahontas. And I think that, with how the animation style was done in Pocahontas, was pretty good and acceptable, yeah. Of course, it still has to have that Disney flavor and all that, with its animation vibe and style, you know, the fluent animation of Disney, it still has to be there, and since it's done by Disney themselves. The songs that come straight from Alan Menken and Stephen Schwartz are pretty good too. You know, the fact that Pocahontas was the first Disney film for Menken where he did not collaborate with his late dear friend Howard Ashman, because, of course, Howard Ashman did all the lyrics, and Menken, I mean, he did the music and the score, so yeah. Well, and as for Stephen Schwartz, well, just like what Howard Ashman does, you know, doing the lyrics and all that. And, by the way, I'm sure you guys probably know that Stephen Schwartz, big-time guy who does lyrics and all that in the musical industry, one of his biggies that he's known for is Wicked. I'm sure some of you know that. Maybe some of you don't. I just now told you for the first time. But, yeah, the intenseful, funny, and emotional moments here and there in Pocahontas are pretty good too, of course. The slapstick, the comic reliefs, and all that. Of course, we have to have that in any Disney film, even if like, say, something really dramatic and all that is happening at times in a Disney movie like this, like Pocahontas. You know, the fact that, you know, again, Pocahontas really didn't hit the same mark as what some of the early films in the Disney Renaissance had hit, from Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, and Aladdin, and especially The Lion King. Well, again, that's not to say that Pocahontas turned out to be a god-awful Disney film in the Disney Renaissance. Well, and the thing is that when Pocahontas came out, well, I mean, that's when some of the Disney Renaissance films, while still being really good, they weren't hitting that same mark as the first ones that came out from 1989 to 1994, you know. But you get my point. But yeah, you know, because just overall, Pocahontas, it's, you know, it's definitely a great 90s animated Disney film classic and such, and from the Disney Renaissance. And for those that really love this Disney animated film, having their favorite songs and all that, just, yeah. Overall, Pocahontas, it's really good. Definitely. Okay, so with the first things I've had to say about Pocahontas now out of the way, now, as always, for me, read the description / the story. This is the tale of the romance between a young American Indian woman named Pocahontas and Captain John Smith, who journeyed to the New World with other settlers to begin fresh lives. Her powerful father, Chief Powhatan, if I'm pronouncing his name right, but again, you know me sometimes, disapproves of their relationship and wants her to marry a native warrior. Well, he doesn't know that yet, but yeah. Meanwhile, Smith's fellow Englishmen hope to rob the Native Americans of their gold. Can Pocahontas' love for Smith save the day? Well, we, of course, are finding out all about that as the movie proceeds. Yeah, okay. So, now with reading the description / the story out of the way, get into some background, and technically I kind of already did, but, you know, to talk more about it. Well, first off, because, have to acknowledge, because how Pocahontas came to be, how it all began. Well, one of the Rescuers Down Under directors, Mike Gabriel, proposed an idea for a Disney animated film that they can do at some point in the next few years, and where basically it was like a poster of Tiger Lily, you know, supposed to be Pocahontas, and with a couple of woodland creatures around her, and with Walt Disney's Pocahontas, you know, up top and all that. And it didn't take too long for Disney to approve of this, and for this to be underway, and for this to be one of their next Disney animated films in the lineup of the Disney Renaissance. And like I said, those at Disney, especially Katzenberg, whom at the time was a part of Disney, he was in charge of the animation department, and he was responsible. Keep in mind, he was responsible for bringing to life some of the first early films in the Disney Renaissance, from Little Mermaid to Lion King. Yeah, and also including Pocahontas, because he was still involved in that before he resigned, which you know that. But like I said, yeah, Katzenberg, because, you know, he really was hoping that this was going to be a money grabber, and, that it was going to get some Oscar nominations, including Best Picture, really hoping that this would be a Best Picture winner, if that would have been possible. Yeah. And also the accuracy. Yeah, because the film it took significant creative liberties with history. Pocahontas' real name was Matuaka, if I even got that right, but again, me sometimes. And Pocahontas was a nickname. And she was approximately 10 or 11 years old when John Smith arrived. Not the young adult depicted in the film, apparently. And let's just say that, take Gaston, for example, in Beauty and the Beast. Yeah, that's basically what John Smith was apparently like in reality. So yeah, not the swashbuckling, heroic guy that we see in the movie. And apparently there is no historical evidence of a romantic relationship between Pocahontas and John Smith. God help us, I don't know, I'd like to think that probably they were on good terms or something, but yeah, maybe some of you know that. Okay, and also, a couple of other things to point out, because, yeah, historical context of Pocahontas, because in early life, Pocahontas was the daughter of the paramount chief, Powhatan. So, yeah, they, of course, used his name. And she first encountered John Smith and the Jamestown colonists around 1607. And then, when it came to, say, captivity and marriage, she was captured by the English in 1613, baptized and renamed Rebecca in 1614. And she married tobacco planter John Rolfe, and which helped bring about a period of peace. Then, when it came to, say, London and death, Pocahontas traveled to London in 1616, where she was presented as a figure of civilized savage status. She died in Kent, England, in 1617 at the age of 21. Man. Well, it's a good thing that in the case of the film itself, because nothing like that happens, nor even say when the sequel happened. But that, of course, being another story. Yeah, and like I said, because the film wasn't really a huge success like what The Lion King was. I mean, yeah, because, Pocahontas receiving mixed reviews, but, it was a commercial success and would win 2 Academy Awards for Best Song for Colors of the Wind and Best Original Score. Yeah, because we all love hearing the original score of music that comes from Alan Menken himself for any of the Disney films he's done, without a doubt. Yep. Yeah, and because with the controversy, critics debating the film's historical accuracy, because, again, being very complicated for Disney, and when it came to them literally doing a movie, an animated musical film, about someone who was real, so, yeah. But again, I feel as though that it may not have turned out that amazing, and with and not having everybody, be okay with it, not can't pleasing everybody around the world, but still, that's not to say it was god-awful, Also, another interesting fact is that, the animal sidekick characters, because originally they were supposed to talk, and there were supposed to be 3 animal sidekick characters alongside with Pocahontas. Well, of course, we have the raccoon, we have the hummingbird, but we would have also had a turkey by the name of Redfeather, and Redfeather was originally going to be voiced by the late John Candy, but on account of John Candy's passing, it was also decided that they should probably just not have the animal characters talk, including a dog that's in Pocahontas, Percy, Radcliffe's pet. And, I think it all turned out fine, because, let's face it, not every single Disney animated film has to have all of the animal characters talk, right? Golly, best examples, I can think of, say, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, with the goat character, or, say, Moana or Encanto, of course, but yeah. Also, since I mentioned Encanto, it's kind of nice that What's-Him-Face, who can speak to animals, he had some conversations with the characters of Pocahontas in Once Upon a Studio. That was a nice little touch there. Yep. Okay, anyways, alright, so I think that pretty much does it for background, so, well, with background now out of the way, let's now dive in / break down Pocahontas itself. Here we go. Yeah, so the movie opening, and literally with our first song number, which, of course, being the Virginia Company, which, it was a nice opening song with a good chorus. And yeah, because the Virginia Company about to set sail, because the English, as they're also referred to, because the movie begins with the English settlers, led by Governor Ratcliffe and Captain John Smith, arriving in the New World in search of gold and new lives. Yeah, I mean, Ratcliffe is especially wanting to go after the gold and such, and spoilers, he is the main antagonist, / the main villain. And yeah, to go ahead and mention our first batch of characters, well, because, and especially those that get some of the first lines, we have these two funny English guys named Lon. Is it Lon or Lone? Either way, because, yeah, being voiced by Joe Baker, and Ben being voiced by good old Billy Connolly. I almost said Ben. Yeah. Then we also have, of course, Thomas, who would become John Smith's right-hand man, I guess you could say, and Thomas being voiced by good old Christian Bale. Yeah. I wonder, because I feel like people seem, not everybody, but people seem to forget that, Pocahontas had some big names in this, from Christian Bale, and whom voices Captain John Smith. And to go ahead and mention him, because, yeah, enter Captain John Smith being voiced by another good talent in this film, Mel Gibson. Yeah. Well, not to mention that, that same year when Pocahontas came out, because 1995 was a big year for Mel Gibson, there was this, and most prominently, Braveheart. Yes, the Best Picture winner. So yeah, not only did he star as you-know-who, but he also directed Braveheart. So yeah, 1995 being a pretty good year, big/good year for Mel Gibson. So yeah, them arriving and about to set sail to the New World, as they're calling it. They're gonna set foot on a new piece of land they've never set foot on, and, at first, they're going to claim it. They're going to build roads and all that, and bring their fellow English folks over to this new world. And yeah, not only is Captain John Smith in charge, but yeah, Governor Ratcliffe, he's definitely the big man of this journey. And Governor Radcliffe being voiced by the late, great, talented David Ogden Stiers. Yes. And yeah, David Ogden Stiers, whom had done a lot of voice acting and such for Disney. I mean, especially since before Pocahontas, he had done, say, Beauty and the Beast, and when it came to, say, Pocahontas, there would be a couple of other Disney films where David Ogden Stiers would lend his voice to, like, yeah, the Archdeacon in The Hunchback of Notre Dame, or, say, being in Atlantis, The Lost Empire, or, most prominently, another biggie for David Ogden Stiers, Dr. Jumba Jookipa in Lilo and Stitch. Yep, that especially. Yeah, definitely, because it's definitely a big tie between, say, Beauty and the Beast, Pocahontas, and Lilo and Stitch that are some of his best voice acting roles, that he's done in Disney films. But he's done more than that, even, like, doing a couple of Disney live-action materials, like, most prominently as the villain in Jungle to Jungle with Tim Allen and Martin Short. But, yeah. Anyways, but the first characters we see in the start of Pocahontas, they are some pretty good characters, and of course, since Lon and Ben, they're kind of the comic relief and such. They have some funny moments here and there, but they are tough men, and when it comes to, at first, them going up against the Indians. John Smith, good lead in Pocahontas, being voiced by Mel Gibson. And, because how kind and heroic he is, and in search of adventure, and if we couldn't tell already, because, he's not really interested in, like, say, what Ratcliffe is going after, when exploring the New World. And Thomas was another pretty good character as well, and especially the chemistry between him and John Smith, and yeah, John Smith helping out Thomas at times, especially when at some point in the film he helped teach Thomas to keep both eyes open when shooting a gun. Yeah, so that'll help. Anyways, so with their journey to set sail to the New World, well, because, one point, they're in a big, heavy thunderstorm. Thomas almost lost his life. He was thrown overboard, and they were this close to abandoning him. But John Smith, he took it upon himself to dive in and rescue Thomas. And definitely they weren't going to leave John Smith behind, because, they definitely needed John Smith. Because, it all turned out fine. And also, can't forget to mention, Radcliffe's assistant / sidekick, Wiggins, also being voiced by David Ogden Stiers. That was pretty cool that he got to voice both the villain and the sidekick. And Wiggins, because he too being a comic relief, and him being one of those sidekick characters with villains where he's funny and he's harmless. Because the moments that he gets are pretty funny, especially since he did at one point, apparently he invented the whole thing of the bow and arrow around your head, that being a signature of Steve Martin. Apparently Wiggins was responsible for that. He made it himself later on in the movie. And of course, can't also forget to mention, I already technically did, Radcliffe's pet dog, Percy, and the sounds of Percy, and overall the voice of Percy, was Danny Mann. Anyways, so, like I said, they set sail, and they're going to explore a new world, but that is with the exception that they are prepared, they're precautious, they're well aware that they could run into Indians. And in Pocahontas, they sometimes do call them Injuns, okay? But they also would call them, most prominently, savages. That too. Anyways, and then, after all that, we get our introduction with the English folks, and they were in that horrific storm. The storm settled down. Well, we finally get our opening credits. Walt Disney Pictures presents Pocahontas. And then, of course, we come to the land where the natives live, and we would soon get our introduction of Pocahontas herself. Well, before we meet Pocahontas, when we first see the Indians, we, of course, get our introduction of the chief of the Indians, Chief Powhatan. I might be butchering the name some, but again, me sometimes. And the chief being voiced by the late Russell Means, whom, he is Indian. And I think for a lot of us, we would know him best as Billy Two Feathers in Thomas and the Magic Railroad. But he was in a bunch of other stuff that he'd be best known for, like, say, he was in Natural Born Killers, if you remember his part in that film. But of course he would, not just that, but also on account of Thomas and the Magic Railroad, he would also be best known for being in Pocahontas. The voice of the chief of the Indians, and whom, in fact, is the father of Pocahontas herself. So, the chief, and I'm just gonna stick with calling him the chief and such, might as well. Well, the chief, and along with a bunch of other Indians, they return from a war against the Massawamek, and hosts a feast for his warriors, and, is looking forward to reuniting with his daughter, but she's not present for right now because, we would see her having a moment to herself and listening to the wind and all that. She took it after her mother, basically. And Pocahontas' best friend, Nekoma, I hope I'm saying that right, Nekoma being voiced by, Michelle St. John. Now, she was another pretty good character, too. And, she's a good friend to Pocahontas, but even when, there are a few moments in the film later on where she does not really intentionally, hurt her best friend, but until I get there, okay? But you guys probably know by now, but again, until we get there. And, she calls out to Pocahontas, who's way up top where there's a waterfall, and, she informs Pocahontas that her father has returned, and, then we are introduced to two of Pocahontas's animal friends, Miku, whom is a raccoon, being voiced by the voice of the Crypt Keeper himself, John Kazir, and Flit, whom is a hummingbird, and Flit being voiced by the legendary voice actor himself, Frank Welker. But yeah, Miko and Flit, the two of them are, of course, yeah, them being the sidekick animals and being, like, you know, other comic reliefs of Pocahontas. Well, I mean, yeah, they're enjoyable and funny, entertaining in Pocahontas, just, yeah. And good, loyal animal friends to Pocahontas, definitely. I even say, like, Miko, you know, he's always craving for something to eat, and Flit, man, Flit definitely has quite an attitude. Yeah, especially when, you know, they would meet John Smith. Anyways, so, with Pocahontas being informed that, you know, her father has returned home, and the voice of Pocahontas being Irene Bedard. Yeah, I hope I'm getting her full name right, yeah. But I mean, just, yeah, what can you say about the character and the title character herself, Pocahontas? Such a great Disney character, and in the lineup of the Disney princesses, technically. Irene, and with her voice performance as Pocahontas, so fantastic. What she brings to the title character herself, really good. And, of course, have to acknowledge the singing voice of Pocahontas, Judy Cohn, maybe I'm mispronouncing her last name, but yeah. But overall, yeah, she was really good being the singing voice of Pocahontas. And, yeah, because as we all know, there have been plenty of, not all of them, but just a few of the Disney princesses who have their own singing voices, but a good majority of them, they, you know, it would be both the speaking and singing voice, like, you know, especially in the case of, say, Ariel and Belle. They were both voiced and sung by, you know, say, Jodie Benson and Paige O'Hara. I mean, you get my point, but yeah. Anyways, so, with Pocahontas reuniting with her father, and, well, Pocahontas' father has informed her that, well, one of the tough Indians named Kokum, yeah, and Kokum being voiced by James Apuma Mute Fall. Yeah, James Fall. I'll just go with that, James Fall. Yeah, Kokum is wanting to marry the chief's daughter, and Pocahontas, I mean, she's not sure about this. You know, she's kind of flattered, but does she want to marry Kokum? Especially when she points out that he's so serious. Yeah, he is. Just that serious look and all that. But, you know, he's still a good, loyal Indian warrior, of course. Yeah, especially, like, you know, he has, like, handprints tattooed on his bare chest. Yeah. But Kokum, with how much we get of Kokum in this, yeah, I mean, he was a pretty good character and, well, you know, serious and all that. And with what sadly ultimately happens to him, but we'll get there when we get there. Yeah. Anyways, and, yeah, and, well, Pocahontas, she's left with a choice to herself, like, which path to take. You know, a life of an adventure, or, you know, take Kokum's hand in marriage. And not to mention that, the chief gave Pocahontas a necklace that her late mother wore when she and the chief, they got married, you know, on their wedding day. And, yeah, because it's a nice, beautiful necklace that Pocahontas wears, you know, that was once her mother's, now it's hers, and that says it all about the character Pocahontas, because every time we look at the character herself, we always see that necklace. But anyways, oh, and also, because the chief's singing voice was provided by Jim Cummings, yeah, and an elderly of the Indians, and whom can see in the future and see visions, and when it comes to the English folks that arrive on their land, yeah, that being Kikata. I hope I'm getting that right, and Kikata being voiced by Gordon Tutisis. Hope I'm getting the last name right, but again, you know me sometimes. And some of these names and such, they can sometimes be not that easy to pronounce. Anyways, yeah, so Jim Cummings, he did the singing voice of the chief as well as Kikata. Yeah, and, well, I mean, because I know it's Jim Cummings doing the singing voice, I mean, he still does a pretty good job when, you know, he has to alter his voice slightly when he's either voicing the chief or Kikata. Yeah, especially when it comes to one of the later songs. But yeah, overall, yeah, again, the chief and Kikata, they too are other pretty good characters and higher-ups of the Indian tribe on this land. But anyways, so after the chief would give Pocahontas what was once her mother's, that necklace. Well, then we would come to our next song, which is, yeah, definitely one of the top best songs to come from this film, Just Around the River Bend. Yep. And basically, the song, it represents unknown future and the choice between a predictable life and a life of an adventure, as I did say a minute ago. And the two paths of the river symbolize the two life choices. A claim, straight course representing societal expeditions, yeah, like marrying a suitor, or a twisting, winding path, symbolizing a leap of faith into a new and uncertain future. And yeah, I mean, which choice and which path, is she going to choose specifically? What is Pocahontas going to do? I mean, it's very complicated for her and so on. But yeah, but that is until, after the song number, and she would have a visit with Grandmother Willow, yes. Grandmother Willow being voiced by another talented actor/actress, Linda Hunt. And we know Linda Hunt probably best for, say, Kindergarten Cup, but also being in one of the NCIS shows. And I also remember her best from being in the Yours, Mine, and Ours remake. If you remember her part in that, oh yeah, she was enjoyable. Come on, even if she's in something that's she's still enjoyable to watch, right? Yeah, and her voice performance she brings to Grandmother Willow, well, also being fantastic. Grandmother Willow being one of those characters in any Disney film, right there next to, say, well, Rafiki, that's so wise and cutting and always, prepared to deliver any wise advice and all that to our main protagonists. And in the case of, Pocahontas. And apparently, for a while, Pocahontas, and she explains this to her best friend and would explain this to Grandmother Willow, that she's been having a dream. And in her dream, she's been seeing a spinning arrow. What could that mean specifically? I wonder, and you wonder. Because Grandmother Willow would then tell Pocahontas to listen to the wind and all that. And it's the same thing Grandmother Willow would, taught Pocahontas's mother. And we would come to our next song number, which being Listen With Your Heart. Yeah, listen with your heart, and also the wind and all that. Because everything around Pocahontas, from the leaves, the sky, the water, it's all spirits. Yeah, guiding Pocahontas and so on. And, where her destiny lies. And yeah, I mean, Listen With Your Heart was a pretty good song, and the fact that it's reprised 2 more times, and Linda Hunt, doing the singing of Grandmother Willow. And, well, basically, the leaves. They at one point guide Pocahontas up in the trees, and at first, she thinks it's clouds, strange-looking clouds, but it turns out to be sails, because, by this point, the English from the Virginia Company, they've finally arrived in the New World, as they call it, and thus, they've stepped foot, and they will proceed with what they're going to do. Most prominently, Ratcliffe, he's going to do whatever it takes to seek the gold, if there's any gold on the New World. Oh, and a couple of other things to mention before, we continue on point, because, more with Pocahontas and Grandmother Willow, because, obviously Pocahontas told Grandmother Willow about, Kokum, wanting to marry Pocahontas, and Grandmother Willow knows, too, that he is so serious. And, the fact that Pocahontas' father thinks it's the right path for her, but and another thing is, when the song, Just Around the River Bend, came to an end, she did make her choice, the path of adventure and all that, and then when she would come up to say Grandmother Willow, and the whole thing about the spinning arrow, because, basically, according to Grandmother Willow, that's helping, basically, Pocahontas choose her path, so, don't underestimate Grandmother Willow, nor would Pocahontas. Okay, but getting back on point, because, and to speed things up some, because, again, the Virginia company, the English folks, they've finally arrived on the new land, and, well, it wouldn't take too long for the Indians, and including Pocahontas herself, to, be aware and that, yeah, new people have arrived, these strangers, and the Indian people believe that they already think that they may be a threat and such. Even when the Indian elder, Kikata, he, with using, magic and all that, well, with the fire and smoke, that, these strangers, they come with weapons beyond their capability, unlike anything, which of course being guns, and the armor they wear, just, yeah, viewing it as being dangerous and such. And, well, the chief is hoping that, maybe they won't stay too long, and they will observe what they're doing and such, and maybe, hopefully, because to the Indians, they may not be a threat and such, may not be as they assume to be. Yeah, so, and even, well, of course, Pocahontas herself, she would observe, like, when they first arrive, and even getting a first glimpse of, say, John Smith. Even when, like, say, at one point, Miko is the first to approach John Smith, and it actually goes pretty well. John Smith is very kind to Miko, offering Miko a biscuit and two, and when Miko starts to go after all the other biscuits, then when Flint steps in and starts to, mess around with John, Flint is not comfortable with Smith's presence at first, just, yeah, like flying around his face. And Pocahontas was this close to being discovered by Smith. Well, not yet. And, well, Governor Ratcliffe, he now claims the New World, by the name of, King James I. And, well, Ratcliffe, one of his first tasks he's going to do, at one point, because he does put John Smith to the task on, making sure, like, if there's any Indians in sight and all that, and, well, Smith, he hopes as though that they won't be a threat or anything like that, and since he did state he did encounter Indians before and such, yeah. Anyway, so, yeah, Smith would proceed on exploring the land some more, and if there's any sign/sight of Indians nearby, well, especially in the case of Pocahontas, until he crossed paths with her. But meanwhile, Ratcliffe, well, he puts all of the men to the task to start digging the grounds in search of gold, because, yeah, and with the mentioning that the Spanish had supposedly discovered gold on the New World, if there is even any gold, because Ratcliffe immediately assuming that there is gold, but yeah, there's probably not a chance there is gold. And that's when we would come to our next song number, which, yeah, technically being like a villain song, especially in the case of Ratcliffe. Mines, yeah. That was another pretty good song and being sung by David Ogden Stiers and Mel Gibson, because, yeah, basically Mel Gibson does sing as John Smith in this. But yeah, it was a pretty good song, and with Ratcliffe, dreaming about, searching for gold and, what his life would be like now that he's rich and such, and maybe he could claim the throne of King James I. Yeah, like if that's gonna happen. But yeah, just overall, Mine is another good song to come from Pocahontas. Yeah, I mean, I'd say probably... Yeah, definitely it's up there with the River Bend and two other songs that come up a little later in the film, but of course until we get to them. And also, because, can't forget to mention this too, more shenanigans that Miko gets himself into. Well, because he does at one point come face to face with Percy, Ratcliffe's pet dog, because Percy getting so much love and attention, like, getting his own groom and spa, and he's having his own private bubble bath, and Miko disturbing his bubble bath when he actually takes all of the cherries that Percy was going to feast on. And this would be the beginning of, the intention between Percy and Miko, which, by the way, that would be quite an early thing in this movie where, yeah, one against the other. Right? Because, yeah, when it would come up to, say, the Indians and the English folks, against one another. See? Yeah, because... and how that would build up, and when Pocahontas and John Smith would start to realize that when they're witnessing Percy and Miko going against one another. Oh yeah. Okay, but getting back on point, because yeah, well, then we would slowly but surely come to where, yeah, John Smith and Pocahontas would cross paths, because while John is still exploring and he washes himself off by nearby a waterfall, he does at one point barely sees a reflection in the water of Pocahontas. And then when Pocahontas is walking around some, then when, yeah, he really starts to see a figure walking, and he's, you know, preparing himself, he's got his gun loaded, and, well, when he has the gun pointed at her, well, he realizes that, yeah, it's a beautiful woman, and, well, of course he's not gonna shoot her, and even when she runs off, well, you know, he catches up to her, and, well, he tries to interact with her, but at first, Pocahontas is speaking in her Indian language and all that, in completely different language, and, well, that's when the wind would blow the leaves, and we would once again hear the song, Listen with Your Heart. Yeah, so, yep, the spirits, you know, bringing them close together. That's her path, and by meeting John Smith, but more than just that. And as the film would proceed. And, yeah, well, they seem to hit it off pretty good. Meanwhile, back where Ratcliffe and the others are, still digging, and, geez, even when, like, say, Ratcliffe at one point, he's feasting on a turkey chicken wing and such. Yeah, chicken wing. And hasn't the other men have had a bite to eat and such? God, give them something to eat if that's the case. But, well, I mean, they don't... There's no indication, nor do any of them say that they're starving, but yeah. But Ratcliffe, he bite on a chicken wing at one point, then he gave it to Wiggins, and, well, Wiggins was going to give it to Percy, but, well, that, you know, Percy was not interested. Then, you know, Wiggins, he tried to have Percy, you know, play fetch, get the chicken wing. But the chicken wing made its way to where one of the Indians was nearby. And, yeah, Wiggins noticing the Indian and everybody else on alert that Indians are present. They're nearby, and Ratcliffe immediately assuming that they're ambushing them, and thus they whip out their guns, they open fire, and, well, the Indians, they would, you know, open fire with their bow and arrows. And at one point, Thomas, well, he at one point doesn't aim properly, shooting at one of the Indians, and this does piss off Ratcliffe. And Ratcliffe, he at one point does shoot at one of the Indians, wounding them severely, and even when, the Indians retreat, and when Kiata, he attends to the Indians' wounds, it's unlike any wound he's attended to, because with how this injury was done, it came from a bullet of a gun. So, yeah. And the chief takes precaution and declares that, you know, they shouldn't go near them, and they'll be prepared for anything else with what they're gonna do next. Yeah. And meanwhile, Pocahontas, whom is still hanging out with John Smith, getting to know him, and as well as he's getting to know Pocahontas, what each of their cultures are like, their different peoples, and, you know, John Smith, he teaches Pocahontas, like, how to say hello by a handshake. He tried to shake hands with Miko, but Miko, he wasn't interested. He was only interested in if there was any other food that John Smith was carrying. And Pocahontas, she actually teaches John Smith how she and her people say hello and goodbye. In hello, well, she responds by teaching him Wingapo, yeah, and with the way the hands are done, yeah. And in goodbye, it's Anna, yeah, but, you know, but John prefers with her, like, you know, just going with hello and all that, just, yeah, in English. And, well, John would also share where he comes from. He comes from a big village, you know, big, tall buildings and all that. And, well, Pocahontas, wanting to, you know, is interested in the path of adventure and all that, she would like to explore all that comes from where Smith comes from. And Smith confirms to Pocahontas that she will, because with their presence here on their land, they're going to bring all that and have them know about all this stuff that they have, like, you know, with roads and all that. And, well, Pocahontas, she does not like the sound of it. And saying to Smith that everything that her and her people have on their land is perfect the way it is. And John Smith, well, it's not like he does it intentionally, okay? Because, come on, haven't we all been in this situation where we don't mean to say some certain words that come out the wrong way? You get what I'm saying. Just, yeah, I'm pretty sure that goes for John Smith, you know? It's not like he's saying it intentionally, and judging by the tone of his voice, no. Because he does say some poor choice of words, you know, saying that Pocahontas is not that smart or anything like that, and by saying the word savage, yep, that too, and just, yeah, John Smith is not making it any better with the rest of the poor choice of words he's saying, but, well, I mean, in the end, even after he falls off a tree when he was trying to climb up and reach to Pocahontas. Yeah, he fell down. And Pocahontas, she would further show John, like, what he's really missing out on. And, you know, for her to teach John Smith so much more about where he's at now, and on account of Pocahontas and her people, you know, the Indians and such. And when it would come to our next song number, which, yeah, this being the Oscar-winning song of Pocahontas, which of course being, you know, Colors of the Wind. Paint with all the colors of the wind. Yeah. So in the song, well, it's basically about, you know, respect for nature, cross-cultural understanding, and the intercondendence, I might have butchered that name some, but you know, of all living things. Challenging the European settlers' view of the land and as something to be owned and conquered and such. Yeah, so with her showing that to John Smith, and yeah, because just Colors of the Wind is definitely a good song, and especially in the case, this being another one of Pocahontas' songs. Beautiful animation that happens, especially because with how she is, like in the reflection of the water and all that. You know what I'm talking about. Amazing shots where, like, say, they're at one point on top of a hill and all that. You know, the great singing of Pocahontas from Judy Kuhn. Just, yeah, it's definitely Colors of the Wind is another good song to come from Pocahontas, and if not, another, you know, good song that came straight from Alan Menken, and also with the aid of Stephen Schwartz, definitely. And I'm sure you guys would think so too. And if, you know, Colors of the Wind is one of your top favorite songs to come from Pocahontas. Okay, but after that, well, unfortunately, Smith and Pocahontas, they have to part ways for now. Smith has to go back to, you know, his fellow men and such. And, yeah, and also, here's another thing that I completely forgot to mention, because, you know, Pocahontas definitely having a Romeo and Juliet vibe going on, and that being one of the other, you know, purposes and ideas of, you know, of Disney making Pocahontas. So, yeah, I almost forgot about that, so good thing I remembered. So, yeah, just wanted to get it out of the way. Okay, but back to what I was saying, because, yeah, Ratcliffe, I mean, he's really struggling, because, you know, to him, he should have had, you know, the riches and all that. But, you know, Ratcliffe, being Ratcliffe, you know, believing as though that the Indians, they might be hiding this and all that, especially on account that, well, they now know their presence here. Well, even there's, say, one moment where, yeah, Ratcliffe does notice, and has Lone and Ben, you know, go and search, Smith, because he had disappeared, and, you know, they ask the governor, you know, what if we run into the Indians? Well, that's what guns are for. Yeah, because, yeah, they'll come in handy for them. And, yeah, the next time that, Smith would meet with Pocahontas, actually, because at one point, Pocahontas, I mean, well, her best friend is kind of onto her, because she can kind of tell and sense that Pocahontas is keeping and hiding something. Yeah. And even, yeah, right before she would mention that to Pocahontas, well, the chief would pop in and check on her daughter, because, well, on account that both Pocahontas and her best friend, they're picking some corn from the cornfield, and maybe they shouldn't be out there too far, but all they're simply doing is just picking, corn and such, food supplies in case, well, with what's going to happen later, when war's going to strike between the Indians and, the Virginia Company. And a nice moment where the chief, mentions to her daughter that everybody, they always looked up to Pocahontas' late mother for guidance and wisdom and all that. And mentioning to her daughter that maybe Pocahontas can be in that same territory as like what her mother was. And she even said that she'd be honored by that. Oh yeah, definitely. She'd be quite good at that. And she would indeed be so very later on. But after that, well, yeah, again, that's when Pocahontas' best friend would, kind of confront her like, you're hiding something and such. And just when John Smith steps in, Pocahontas gets her to shut up by covering her mouth. And also, Smith was prepared when Flit came in to charge at him. He had a biscuit in handy, because, yeah, when he was about to strike. Yep, he got Flit that time. And, well, yeah, because Smith wanted to see Pocahontas, of course, but, yeah, he shouldn't be right where he is. And not to mention that, incoming Kocoum, because, yeah, he steps in, and, yeah, Smith managed to get out of there in time, and, yeah, Pocahontas tagged along with her, and she asked her best friend to, keep it a secret, for her not to have Kocoum and the others know about what Pocahontas is doing, and she did so, but that would be the last time she would do it. Yeah, just do it one time. And yeah, the more interactions and time that Smith and Pocahontas have, and, like, when it would come up to, say, like, Smith asking Pocahontas about gold and such, and Pocahontas showing Smith, the gold that they have, which being, corn, but that's not the gold he's talking about. And by showing Pocahontas a piece of gold, which she's never seen before, and yeah, Smith would then discover that there is, in fact, no gold buried on the New World. Yeah. And then, yeah, because where they're at right now, they're in the location where Grandmother Willow is. And yeah, John Smith would meet Grandmother Willow for the first time. He is shocked at first, but it wouldn't take too long for him to start to, well, settle and warm up to Grandmother Willow, be okay. And yeah, and Grandmother Willow, she knew his name, and, well, because she's Grandmother Willow. She pretty sure she knows everything. And, yeah, even Grandmother Willow finding him handsome, but at the same time, having good heart. She can sense that in John Smith, which is true, because, him being really the only one, the only one that does not have good heart is Ratcliffe. That's a fact. The others, they're okay, especially Smith. Yeah. And yeah, because at one point, Lon and Ben, they do, they're coming up to where they are right now. We're at Grandmother Willow, and, Grandmother Willow's got it from here. She lifts up one of her tree branches to have them, tip over and such, because trip over. And, they make a run for it when they see that part of that branch, sits back down on the ground, just, yeah. But John can't stay too long, because, yeah, he has to get back, and before other men come and try and find him and such, yeah. But, things slowly but surely getting intense and not pretty good, and, John Smith asking Pocahontas to meet with her again right here where Grandmother Willow is, and so on. And Pocahontas, like I said, things starting to get slowly but surely intense and not good, and, Pocahontas, she feels that, she can't see him again, but she wants to. Grandmother Willow, she's fully supportive of that, of wanting to see John Smith again. And still, with Grandmother Willow telling Pocahontas to listen to her heart and follow the path and such, and with the aid of the spirits. Yeah, definitely. Also, to mention more about what goes on with Miko, because more shenanigans that Miko gets himself into, especially on account of Percy. And by the way, because Percy, being voiced by Danny Mann. Did I mention that already? Maybe, but just in case, I'll say it again. Danny Mann, who voices Percy. Yeah, I did, but just he technically does do the voice, but the sounds of Percy when he barks and whimpers, all that. Yeah, no speaking lines. Because, the more shenanigans that Miko would get himself into, and getting in Percy's face, like, at one point, Miko came inside of Ratcliffe's tent, while Ratcliffe, he's going through a crisis because he doesn't have the riches yet, and Percy entertained himself with a carousel of doggy bones, and Miko feasted on all of them. And when at one point Percy would chase after Miko and would lose sight of him, when Percy at one point gets stuck in a small tree branch and such. Poor Percy. But just further on, the more, chemistry and shenanigans that Miko gets into with Percy is quite amusing. Until, of course, I'm sure it's bound to happen that, Miko and Percy, they would come on good terms. Anyways. Meanwhile, with what's going on with each Pocahontas and John Smith, well, at one point, Pocahontas would then, when she would come back to, the village, she would see that, more additional warriors have arrived, and in preparation for whenever the battle's about to happen, strike and such, between them and the British. Because Pocahontas, she confronts her father about this, that maybe there can be something done about this. Nothing violent or anything like that. Maybe speak to one of them, just one man, and try to negotiate this on good terms. And, and even the chief, he admits that, he would love to do that, but, to him and the others, it's very complicated, and he even says to Pocahontas that, it's not simple. Nothing to him seems like nothing's simple anymore, but no. There can always be simple things. Even Pocahontas, and even Grandmother Willow, would know this for a fact, and us, the audience, because, well, Pocahontas has had an encounter with a good man, which being John Smith, and maybe he can be the answer to all of this. To try to negotiate, and if they can be at peace, Until, until, say, Ratcliffe does something, he strikes. He's the first to strike. And with the men that are under his leadership, they stupidly follow Ratcliffe under his leadership. But just, no hard feelings on them, just Ratcliffe's got them good, but until what happens later on. But coming back to John Smith, because he even say at one point, Miko, he actually did spend some time with Smith for a while, and Thomas, whom was actually at one point on guard, and by this point they actually built a wall/fortress, so they're under protection. Thomas was this close to shooting John, but and as I mentioned earlier, John would give Thomas some good advice on keeping both eyes open, seen twice and all that, with what John specifically says. Good advice, and when it comes to anybody like going hunting and with using guns like that, just keep both eyes open while shooting. And that's when Ratcliffe, he would confront Smith about where he's been and all that. And when Smith confirms to everybody that he has had an encounter with at least one native person, and he confirms to them that they don't seem to be a threat at all. They mean good. And even when he confirms to everybody, even to Ratcliffe, that there is no gold buried in the New World. But Ratcliffe, well, he doesn't care. He just tells the men that it's a bunch of lies. He wants them to listen to him, and just flat out labeling the natives as savages and all that. Again, Ratcliffe has no good heart. He's cold-hearted, and because him being such a dick in this movie, and him being the villain, as I said. But, just overall, because Ratcliffe, again, was such a good villain in Pocahontas, without a doubt. And again, with David Ogden Stiers voicing him, definitely. Oh, and also, even Smith, he showed them that the gold that the Indians have are corn. That's gold. And they mean well and with good food and such, but Ratcliffe just, telling them they don't want to feast us. Gosh, shut up, Ratcliffe. Yeah. But anyways, Smith knows what he's saying, and even when, say, some of the men, like from, say, Lone and Thomas, they start to feel as though that maybe Ratcliffe does mean bad business and such. Like, yeah, they probably should be listening to Smith because, it's obvious, because Smith has treated all of the men on this voyage so nice and kind, and he's been a good captain. But in the case of the governor, Ratcliffe, the total opposite. And the fact that not once, all that digging they did, not once did they find a single bit of gold. Yeah, and of course, with Ratcliffe not being very good, how he treats them and being very harsh, that's for sure. And also, you realize this, that he's not really that harsh to, say, Wiggins. I mean, he kind of is, but not on that same level as, like, say, how Prince John is to Sir Hiss, or Captain Hook to Smee, or especially, say, Alameda Slim and the Willies. You get my point, and that's nice once in a while, just to see a villain not that harsh and abusive to, in the case of Ratcliffe and how he is to Wiggins. I'm just simply saying, yeah. Okay, but getting back on point and to still speed things up some, because, Pocahontas would once again sneak out at the night, and when her best friend, Nakome would catch her, and, she won't do it again. She only did it once, and she won't do it again. Keep a secret and such, from everybody else, including her father. But Pocahontas assuring her that she's trying to help their people and to bring peace and such, and that, with her encounter with John Smith, that he and the others mean well, besides one of them, which of course being the governor himself. Yeah, him being the only one. Then when, say, John Smith, he too would sneak out in the night. He would put his light out in his tent, and, Thomas, he did notice and spot John sneaking out, and so did Governor Ratcliffe. He noticed that too, and he told Thomas to, shoot any Indian if they approach or anything like that. And, he wants Thomas to make a good impression, unlike what Thomas unintentionally did the last time, lousy shooting to Ratcliffe. Pray you do not disappoint me and all that. Man. And, Thomas, he won't do so, and especially since John gave him that advice to keep both eyes open while shooting. Yeah. So, when Smith and Pocahontas would reunite later that same evening, back where Grandmother Willow is, because they're at that point where it's not looking good, and Smith confirming to Pocahontas that his men are planning to start a war/battle with her people, and, both of them gotta do something about it. And Pocahontas, she recommends to Smith that maybe he should come along with her back to the village to speak with her father, the chief, and to hopefully make some negotiations and to settle this once and for all. But then at one point, poor Percy, who is still stuck in that tree branch, because he was howling and it sounded like a wolf. He steps in, and even when Grandmother Willow emerges, she finds that creature very strange looking. But when, it turns out to be Percy, John knows it's Percy. And when Percy and Miko would go at it once again, John and Pocahontas, they would each try to stop the fight between Miko and Percy. But then when Grandmother Willow takes action, that's enough. And scaring the daylights out of Percy. Now Percy will cooperate now that he has witnessed Grandmother Willow. Hey, even the woodland creatures, they know not to mess with Grandmother Willow. Because earlier when Pocahontas was going to share her dream to Grandmother Willow, and all the other animals they were around, they were making a bunch of noise, but Grandmother Willow told them all to shut up, and even the frog, who was croaking. Even the frog knowing not to piss off Grandmother Willow. But anyways, and like I said earlier, that being a good demonstration, best example the fight between Percy and Miko, both different sides, just, yeah. And with more advice and all that Grandmother Willow shares to both Smith and Pocahontas, you know, the paths, and all that, and with what Pocahontas has taken, and they can be together if there's no war and peace between both of their people. Yeah. And that's when Smith, he would then agree, and yeah, he would go with Pocahontas to her people to meet with the chief, and hopefully if all goes well. Yeah. And then at one point, because a few times earlier when it seemed as though that, yeah, when Pocahontas and Smith were getting close to one another, well, they actually do go in for a kiss. And Thomas, who emerges, he can see and is witnessing, you know, what John is doing, kissing a native woman. But, yeah, I mean, at least Thomas, he didn't intervene. But, oh yeah, because Kokum, yeah, when he shows up, oh, he definitely intervenes. Just, yeah, letting that cry, and, well, he would go in for the attacking Smith, thinking that Smith is, you know, and, well, he's, you know, talk about someone who was going to marry Pocahontas, and seeing Pocahontas kiss another man, just, yeah, that totally pissed him off. And, well, yeah, because Kokum trying to kill and attack Smith, Pocahontas tries to stop him, and, well, Smith, it's obvious that he doesn't want to inflict any harm on Kokum, but just getting him to stop and get off of him. And Thomas, well, he was definitely taking action when, I mean, how is he supposed to know all that was happening? Because, you know, he was witnessing the captain almost about to be killed, so, yeah, it's understandable. And on account that, because, you know, it was nothing intentional, he didn't really know, so it's just one of those things. And Thomas, he's loading up the gun, and, man, because Kokum, you know, because when Pocahontas is trying to stop Kokum, man, he shoves her very aggressively onto the ground, I tell you. And, yeah, then, ultimately, and when Thomas, you know, he remembered what Smith said to him, keep both eyes open, he does so, and Kokum is shot dead. And to make it even more dramatic, Kokum actually got a hold of Pocahontas's necklace, her mother's necklace, ripping it off and breaking into pieces. Oh, man. That does hit hard right there, without a doubt. And yeah, Kokum being literally the only character in this movie that dies. Yeah. A murder has happened, an unintentional murder, basically. Again, Thomas, he had no idea, and when he tried to explain to each Pocahontas and Smith, you know, telling Thomas that he shouldn't be here, he needs to get out of here, he tells him to run, because, well, more Indians are showing up, and which they do so, they immediately take Smith in. Yep. And this is where, yeah, things are about to get more intense and ugly, for sure. Yep. And even when, like, say, Pocahontas, she tried to speak with her father, the chief, but the chief, because, yeah, he's very disappointed that his daughter disobeyed her, and especially because, well, since she had an encounter with those strangers, so, yeah. And even when, yeah, like, there's a moment where Nakome, you know, she told Pocahontas that she was the one that sent Kokum out, because, yeah, Kokum was at one point informed by her that, you know, believing that Pocahontas might be in trouble. So, yeah. And she apologizes to Pocahontas, and, well, I mean, at least, you know, Pocahontas doesn't get aggressive with her, and Pocahontas kind of, like, taking the blame and such, because, you know, saying that she was responsible for this, but not intentionally, no, because she shouldn't blame herself or anything like that. Yeah. That's unfortunate where we're at now, and when things are about to get very intense, and when, yes, because Thomas, he witnessed everything that happened, and, well, clearly he witnessed that the captain was being taken in by the Indians. He does inform all of the men, including Ratcliffe, and this was Ratcliffe's moment where, yes, everything's going as I intended it for it to be, as I planned. Yep, because now this is where Ratcliffe does have the men in the palm of his hands where, yeah, they will now go to war with the Indians. All right, but then there's a moment where, and coming back to Pocahontas, her and her best friend go up and, well, basically Pocahontas pretending to those that are guarding their prisoner, John Smith, wanting to, face the man who killed Kokum. Yeah. And they let her go in, and well, because, yeah, Pocahontas, feeling guilty and, just if it would have been better if they had never met. And that's when, we come to our next song number, which it originally was cut from the theatrical release of Pocahontas due to negative reception of the test audience. Oh, brother. Just finding it boring. But thankfully, for a re-release, it was put back in. Yeah, rightfully so. Yeah, the song number being If I Never Knew You. And yeah, because If I Never Knew You is that, without meeting each other, neither Pocahontas or John Smith would have known true love and how precious life can be. And yeah, with it exploring the bittersweet idea that their profound connection, born from a world of fear and hate, has given them a deeper understanding of life. Yeah, altogether. And even though the relationship is forbidden and doomed, again, Romeo and Juliet kind of stuff. Yeah, but hopefully something can be done about this. It can all be patched up, and it cannot end with this being so aggressive and war and all that. And, even like John Smith, he makes it clear to Pocahontas in such a romantic way that, he's okay with dying the next day and not having to live 100 years without not having met Pocahontas. Yeah. Yeah, I would definitely say something like that. Wouldn't you? Just... Anyways. But yeah. So, yeah, it's unfortunate when, it may seem as though that Pocahontas may never see John Smith again if this is going to happen. They will, because they're going to kill him by tomorrow. Yeah. And also, yeah, because that's when we would come up to our next song number, and when, yeah, again, Thomas had informed those that Smith has been taken in by the Indians. Ratcliffe takes it upon himself to get the men to prepare for battle, and that's when we would come to savages. Yeah, savages, barely even human, savages. Oh, that was such a good, war chanting song. Wouldn't you say so? Yeah, another, good, villain song. Not really, but just, and with David Ogden Stiers and Jim Cummings doing the singing, especially, as I mentioned, Jim Cummings doing the singing voices of the chief and the elder Indian man. Yeah. Then there would be part 2 of Savages, because, yeah, during part 1 and part 2 of the song Savages, well, Pocahontas would once again go back to Grandmother Willow, because, what is she supposed to do? But definitely, not just with Grandmother Willow, but with the help of Meeko also. because Meeko had been storing a lot of items that he had been stealing and such, especially from John Smith. One particularly that, yeah, I almost forgot to mention, when, yeah, Smith was showing Pocahontas a compass, because for him, compass helps to know which way to go and such. And Meeko, he stole it. He was, pounding on it and just... Yeah, but that's when Meeko, by this point, would show Pocahontas the compass, and with the arrow, and from her dream, the spinning arrow, that's what it was, from that compass. Yeah, that explains, and yeah, now she realizes the whole thing of the spinning arrow, it came from the compass. And yeah, thanks to Meeko, and with more wise words and all that from Grandmother Willow, Pocahontas, she'll do whatever it takes to prevent this war from happening, for there to be peace and to save John's life, and thus it's a race for her to stop from this happening, and yeah, it just gets more intense. And when part 2 of Savages happens, and with Judy Cohn singing as Pocahontas, and just it's amazing how intenseful it's getting. Those kind of moments in those Disney films, they're so good. And when we know, of course, it's gonna all turn out good in the end. Yeah, because Pocahontas, she stops her father about to strike at Smith, and, well, Pocahontas making it clear to her father that this is the path she chooses, and that she's in love with John Smith, and, pointing out to her father that, look around you, the pain and hatred that's happened and all that, and, telling him and asking him, like, which path does he choose? And that's when the spirits emerge, the wind and all that, and with him listening to his heart. And I'd like to think that probably, maybe, his late wife / the mother of Pocahontas was right there, like, just like calling out to her husband and such. Probably so, yeah. And even when the wind is blowing around the other Indians, as well as the Virginia Company, the British people. And that's when the chief realizes that his daughter is 100% right, and the words of wisdom that comes from her, just amazing to him. And yeah, he listens to Pocahontas, his own daughter, and yeah, it's all called off. They're not going to start a war, they're not going to attack, they lower their weapons down, so do the British men, and they set free John Smith. And yeah, peace is at hand now. But not for Governor Ratcliffe, because Governor Ratcliffe, again, he has no heart and soul. Yeah. Because he's like, now's our chance, attack! But they set him straight. They tell him that, the Indians, they don't want to fight. Is there any sign that they want to attack and all that? No, but Ratcliffe, he doesn't care, because he just wants to kill them and he just wants to claim the gold, when in fact there is no gold on the land. And Ratcliffe, he takes it upon himself, he grabs one of the guns, and he was about to open fire at the Indian chief. John, noticing this, he takes quick action, he gets in the chief's way, and he takes the bullet shot. The reactions from each Thomas and Pocahontas, it's so fantastic. And that moment when Ratcliffe, oh yeah, he's screwed by this point. And, because, even when Ratcliffe tried to explain that, well, yeah, because John Smith did step in the way, but on account that the Indians stepped down, they weren't going to attack, yeah. And when the men realized that, and as they each say, Smith was right all along, we never should have listened to him. Get the gun and, tie him up and gap him as well. Yep, Ratcliffe is pretty much done and probably is not going to be a governor anymore. Yeah, because wait until the king hears about this. Everybody back at Virginia. Even Ratcliffe, he's saying that, I'll see you all hanged for this. Not likely, no, because you're done. You're done, Ratcliffe. You're done by this point. Your career is finished as a governor. All the way through, 100%. And yeah, just seeing Ratcliffe, Ratcliffe being one of those Disney villains that very rarely gets spared. He doesn't die or anything like that. Even Wiggins, he gets a bit emotional because making a comment when he says, and he came so highly, recommended, just, he has a tissue, and that was the same thing that Ratcliffe said to Wiggins, because making that same kind of comment when, commenting about Wiggins, that, Wiggins came so recommended to assist Ratcliffe. Well, maybe Wiggins can find some other better stuff to do as a proper good assistant to someone, But yeah, then, when coming back to John Smith, well, he's supposed to depart, of course, because if he remains on the Indians' land, he won't survive. And certainly for the Indians, they may not be able to heal Smith as good as well on account of when one of the Indians got severely wounded and it was unlike any other injury that they attended to. Yeah. And, well, before they depart, Pocahontas and the Indians, they come up and they give Smith a couple of gifts. Pocahontas had something that Grandmother Willow gave to him. And we even see Percy now being a part of the New World, now joining alongside with Meeko and Flit. And, he's even got his own, Indian, getup and such, tattoos and robe and all that, and a feather. And not to mention that Percy, Meeko, and Flit, they surprised Pocahontas with her mother's necklace. They repaired it. Good on them. That really shows how good of a loyal animal companions they are to Pocahontas, without a doubt. Mm-hmm. And, well, between Pocahontas and Smith, Smith, he wants to, because hoping that maybe Smith can stay with Pocahontas, but he can't. And even when he asks Pocahontas that, you can come with me and all that. And, well, it's her decision. And, her father, by this point, is okay with whichever path she chooses. If she chooses to stay with her people or go with John Smith. And not to mention that, even by this point, the chief, he now called Smith brother, and, telling Smith that he's always welcomed on their land if he ever comes back. That's great to see. But the path that Pocahontas chooses is to stay here. Sadly, she can't go with Smith. And, Smith, he wants to stay, but, he really can't, because he won't survive, because, his wounds gotta be attended. But, obviously, as soon as Smith would get better, well, surely he'll find a way to come back, right? Well, that is in the case of the sequel, but, again, that's another story, yeah. And, because even though they won't be seeing each other for quite a while, they'll always be together, one another, and how they specifically say. And, they go for one more romantic kiss, and, that's when they depart. And the last moments to come from this movie, well, the ship departing, and Pocahontas making a run for it to go to the highest hill and to say goodbye in her way, that the way her people do, with the way she does the hands. And Smith, he did it too, and with the wind blowing, just, what a great way for that being one of the last moments in the film, how the movie ends off, and just like how the movie started off and how it ends, like, we get like a portrait, it starts with a portrait, then we, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, we then like make our way into the movie, because it goes from a portrait to what we're seeing, and then that would happen at the end, where then it would turn into a portrait. You get what I'm saying, and you know what I'm talking about. Just just what a great way for Pocahontas to end off right there on a happy note. And who knows, because I'm sure for a lot of us, besides the sequel, we like to think that probably at some point John Smith, when he got all healed up and such, he did return. And, they could have their happily ever after. But again, on account that the sequel happened, but again, that is another story. But yeah, Disney's Pocahontas, again, it is another fantastic Disney animated film, and to come in the line of the Disney Renaissance. Yeah, everything about Pocahontas from beginning to end, the story, the characters, great voice talents, and with great voice performances that were given to these characters, the chemistry, really good songs, beautiful animation, and, the funny, emotional, intenseful moments, when things aren't looking good, but of course, they would towards the end of the film. Yeah, peace is restored between the natives and the English, and the main villain, of course, Governor Ratcliffe, a really good Disney villain. Pocahontas being a fantastic Disney character, and being a Disney princess, technically. And the chemistry and romance between her and John Smith is good, too. All the other characters, from the animal sidekicks, Percy, Miko, Flit, Ben, Lon, Thomas, Grandmother Willow, the Indian characters. Need I go on? Overall, Disney's Pocahontas, while it may not be 100% accurate and true, that doesn't stop the fact that this was still a pretty good Disney animated film. Yeah, and I'm sure you guys would think so too. Okay, and I'm giving Disney's Pocahontas, well, why not? This sounds about right. 9 out of 10 stars. Yes, 9 out of 10 stars for Pocahontas. And what about you guys? What did you think of Disney's Pocahontas itself? Is it one of your top favorite Disney animated films, especially from the lineup of the Disney Renaissance films? What are your fondest memories of Pocahontas? If you ever owned a VHS copy, a DVD or Blu-ray copy, if you remember watching it on, Disney Channel, Toon Disney. And I forgot to mention that was one of the first times I did watch Pocahontas. Do you have any favorite characters, favorite moments, favorite lines, favorite songs? And if Pocahontas is one of your top favorite Disney princesses, yeah. But just, yeah, again, overall, what do you think of Pocahontas itself with what all I've had to say, my review, and yeah, what did you think of my review of Disney's Pocahontas? Leave comments and give this review video a like, as always. And so, guys, with all that being said, thank you very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed my review of Disney's Pocahontas. More review videos are coming your way. They're going to be awesome. Keep looking forward, and I will see you guys in the next video / review. And, well, there's one more Disney animated film left for me to review, part of the Disney Animated Movie Week. Stay tuned later tonight because what I will be reviewing next, and to round off the Disney Animated Movie Week, well, fast forward 10 years later because, well, and the fact that, yeah, 10 years after the first computer animated film happened, which of course being Toy Story, well, 10 years later, Disney's attempt to do their first computer animated film entirely, besides Dinosaur, that wasn't fully computer animated, you know. And let's just say that their first ever fully computer animated film, well, it did not go so well. And of course, you know what it is, because it has to do with a little chicken with his fear that the sky is falling. Yeah, you know clearly. Yeah. Yep, so yeah, again, stay tuned for that. Take care, happy anniversary to Pocahontas, and peace out. Paint with all the colors of the wind.